our buddy Steve Moore, chief economist of this program. You know, it's been a dark and heavy week, Steve, and so I realize maybe the economy is sort of a clunky thing to talk about, but it is still obviously omnipresent and very real. I was just talking about health insurance a minute ago and seniors. I just read a stat this morning, Steve-O, that seniors are now headed for poverty at a faster clip than the rest of us. Good morning.
Good morning, Chris. Well, it has been a tough and heartbreaking week for all of us. You were asking about the economy. I think the economy is quite strong. I know some of the polls are suggesting Americans are still upset about high grocery prices. I know my wife is, and grocery prices still remain high. But the good news is, I don't know what you're paying there in Pennsylvania for gas, but around the country, gas prices are now falling below $3 a gallon. Although one kind of funny sidelight about that is last weekend, a week ago, I was in California to tape the Bill Maher show, and I was in Los Angeles, and across the street from my hotel was a big Exxon station, $5.50 they're paying for gasoline in California, almost twice what the rest of the country pays. And that is a good example of how state regulations and wacko environmental laws can drive up the cost of everything.
Do you have a sense? I know the last time we talked, you said that you were going to have a big, beautiful bill party with our Treasury Secretary. Do you have a sense of, it sounds like they're getting closer to the TikTok deal. I know he's still very busy at work, hard at work. Their work doesn't stop, although, again, discussions about economy and policy kind of get sidelined in times like these, but their work doesn't stop. What do you know? I mean, where are we in terms of inflation? As you said, grocery prices are still up there. We'd like to see things come down further. We're still going to need some breaks, right? We're going to need a lowered interest rate, or something's got to move. We're still not quite where we want to be, right? What do you see? What's coming?
Well, listen, I mean, if you look at some of the indicators are very strong. I mean, we've got a record stock market, the best voting gauge and how the economy is doing is look at the S&P 500 and look at what's happening with the NASDAQ. I mean, investors are very bullish on America right now. And this is the best place to invest in. It's the best place to build a plan. It's the best place to create jobs. So I think 2026 is going to be a very good year for the economy. We passed our big, beautiful bill, Chris. We are deregulating the economy. We are getting better trade deals. We are producing more oil and gas than ever before. You look at the trends, and they're positive. Now, yes, people are frustrated about what it costs for coffee. There was a lead editorial today in the Wall Street Journal about how coffee prices have jumped up, in part because of the tariffs on coffee beans that come in from Brazil and Colombia. But for the most part, I think Trump is fixing the things that have gone wrong. The fact that we have a 93% reduction in illegal immigration in just 9 months is a spectacular thing. So you're talking to a guy who's very bullish on the U.S. economy. And I think if we get that rate cut, and by the way, I do think that Washington and Wall Street over obsess about the Fed and what they're going to do next, as if Jerome Powell were the wizard behind the curtain that could just push a button and improve the economy. We still have work to do, Chris. I mean, we've got $2 trillion of borrowing every year in Washington. Of course, the next big issue that we'll be talking about in the weeks ahead will there be another government shutdown?
Yes, and that brings me to that continuing resolution, CR, as it's known. You're going to hear a lot more about that. I just read today that President Trump has dialed up Capitol Hill again and said, pass a clean CR. Yes. You want to explain to folks what that means, why Trump is telling Republicans just pass this thing and get it done. It's always described as kicking a can. Thomas Massey, Marjorie Taylor Greene, there are a few that say, nope, we're going to be a sticky wicket here. We're not going to just pass a clean CR. What is it? Why should it be passed as a clean CR, Steve-O?
Well, the this is the way we've been doing budgeting now for most of the time I've been in Washington, which is almost 40 years now. I don't like the process. I don't think anybody does. I think our entire budget process is broken, Chris. I don't know about you, but I just don't see it working when we're borrowing trillions and trillions of dollars. When I first came to Washington in 1984, our national debt was 1 trillion. Now it's 37 trillion. So something's going wrong here. Why is it that every family, why is every business, why is it most state and local governments have to balance their budget? But in Washington, we just keep borrowing trillions and trillions of dollars. So that's where we're at. The Democrats would love to see a shutdown of the budget of the government, because have you noticed this, Chris? You and I have both been in this business a long time. Whether it's a Republican president, a Democratic president, a Republican Congress, a Democratic Congress, have you noticed that Republicans always get blamed for shutdowns? Yeah. Have you noticed that?
Well, that's right. And so when Trump says clean CR, just so everybody's clear, that means don't add
he doesn't want all sorts
to it,
of
don't
amendments.
Add conditions to it.
That's right.
Because Republicans like to come along and say, okay, we'll pass it, but we want to tuck in there more this or less that, or some pork project for my district or whatever, right? That's Trump says don't do any of that. So, just pass this.
Right. Yes, Chris, you've described it well. So it basically says we will just fund everything at last year's level plus, 2% or whatever the percentage is. That's fine. I mean, it's probably better than the alternative, but it's not the way. We should be cutting every government spending by 10, 15, 20%. I mean, if you were a business and you had a business and you had revenues of, 5 trillion and you had spending of 7 trillion, you'd have to do two things. You'd have to try to increase your revenues by making the economy, the company grow faster, and you would cut your expenditures. And we never do that in Washington. I mean, remember, we had this discussion 3 or 4 months ago when we passed the original budget, and Republicans wanted to cut the budget by like 1%. Remember, oh my God, people are going to starve on the street, and then children are going to go hungry, and it was ridiculous. I mean, everybody's going to lose their health insurance. So it's very difficult to cut government spending, but we have to do it, folks. We have to do the right thing for our kids and grandkids to restore some fiscal sanity in Washington, or this Titanic will hit an iceberg at some point.
Steve Moore, again, our chief economist. Don't forget, the Committee to Unleash Prosperity has a hotline newsletter that comes out for free every day. And Steve's book is called The Trump Economic Miracle, if you want to go pick it up. Quickly about the Fed. I know you said everybody kind of waiting for that magic button that the Fed pushes to make things cheaper and the interest rates drop. It is interesting, the people that sit on the Fed board. An appeals court says this Lisa Cook can remain on the Fed board. Pulte, who runs housing for the Trump administration, says we've got her number. Apparently, they've got a file deep on this woman and mortgage fraud potentially. Meanwhile, Stephen Moran, who's been a guest on this show, was just confirmed quickly out of the Senate to join this Fed board ahead of a rate cut decision. How do you read all of this? What does it mean to folks?
Well, the Fed is what really sets the interest rates in the economy, and they're the ones who pump the money in and take the money out of the economy. So it's a very powerful institution. I do believe someone is innocent until proven guilty. That's one of the hallmarks of American society. On the other hand, it appears pretty compelling, the evidence that this woman did lie on her mortgage applications. And you and I are old enough to remember what happened in 2008 when the entire economy basically collapsed because of the mortgage crisis that sent major banks into bankruptcy and caused multi-trillions of dollars of bailouts. So my point is, I do not believe Lisa Cook should be serving on the Federal Reserve Board if she is guilty of this crime, because the Fed has control over mortgage rates and so on. Well, how can we have somebody on the Federal Reserve Board who was in part responsible for the crisis that crushed our economy before? So I think she should do the right thing and she should resign, or at least temporarily take a leave until this whole issue gets resolved. But the main point is the Fed will cut interest rates in a couple of weeks. I think it's 1 or 2 weeks from now. That will provide maybe a little bit of short-term stimulus. Wall Street will like it. But here's my advice to everyone. If you want to see a stronger economy, rather than cutting interest rates, why don't we get the government to cut government spending.
Steve Moore, it's that simple. It really does seem that simple. I don't know when it's, sometimes it just takes catastrophic events. I'm sorry to say the country doesn't seem to snap out of it sometimes, and our leaders don't get will to lead and do hard things until dramatic things happen. You hope the dramatic doesn't happen, economically speaking. Thank you, Steve-O, very much.
Okay, Chris. Have a great week. Take care, my friend.
The Chris Stigall Show podcast.